When thinking about patient orientation, and this word orientation here behind me, it's critical for someone's ease and well-being to be oriented to the environment in which they'll be spending time. I recall my own orientation to college. I'm leaving the familiar environment of my high school where I'd been for several years, familiar environment of home. I'm in a different city. I'm going to be living on campus. How do I get around? How do I find things? What's available? All of this was critical, and so universities, knowing this, often have orientations where they bring in the incoming freshmen, give them a basic orientation geographically, socially, and all other ways to let them know where they are, how to get around, these sorts of things. Orientation is critical for people to feel at ease and therefore get the benefit of being there. So as the patient comes to the facility, these following things ought to be included in every orientation. The first thing we want to talk about is introduction. The patient needs to be introduced to all those that will be working with them, so they're familiar with their faces as much as possible, aware of who they are, what position that they will fill while the patient is there at the facility. So all those who are present as much as possible ought to be introduced to the person. Next, there should be some sort of tour, basic tour of the facility. This would include basically the sleeping area, storage space, bathroom, where it is, shower facilities. Here's where they are, here's how they function, just so they have the information they need. If you need to use the restroom, here it is. If you need a shower, here's the facilities. If you need to store things, here's where your things will go. Here's your room. This is where you will be and remain or come back to. So basically, take them to that area, and if they're going to be a facility where there's going to be monitoring in another room, then take them to that room. Introduce them to that environment, to that area. And at this stage, it leads us to number 3, to the equipment that's going to be used. The person who is going to be using the equipment on the patient ought to take some time to explain what each piece of equipment is and what it does, how it will gather its information, what the patient may experience while being tested, while having that equipment being used near them or on them. Basically, just so they're at ease, they have the information they need. Okay, I know what that piece of equipment is. I know what it does. I know it won't hurt. It's not invasive or whatever. Here's what I can expect, both what information I'm getting or the person's getting from that piece of equipment and how it will impact me as it's being done to me. Next, if there are any alarms associated with either the person's room or with the equipment, they ought to be demonstrated so that the patient then recognizes the sound and knows what it indicates. When you hear this sound, don't be alarmed. It just means this. It doesn't affect you. Once again, keeping the patient calm and they don't feel a great deal of anxiety. Oh, I know that noise. I know what that means. I can ignore it. But you've got to take the time in the orientation to let them hear those sounds and let them know what they mean. Also in their room, if there are any sort of devices used as alerts to let others know that they have a need, demonstrate the use of those, let them hear what it sounds like, practice using it so they feel comfortable if they have a need and they need to use the call device or sound some sort of alarm, that use does not alarm them as well. So orient them to that. Next, to help make them familiar with their environment, orient them to light switches. Here's how you can get more illumination, less illumination. If there's temperature control features in their facility or room that they have control over, here's how to make it warmer or cooler. Here are fan switches if you'd like a breeze, things like this. So take the time then to help them locate these things and instructions in their use. And then finally, you need to take some time to explain their Hipaa rights. The patient does have rights. Apprise them of their right to privacy, their right to confidentiality, of their right to refuse treatment, according to all the Hipaa regulations, the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act. Giving the information to the patient empowers them and makes them at ease and makes their stay not only better for their health, but better overall. So when we talk about a basic orientation, these are the things you need to remember. Introduction to those they'll be working with, a basic tour of the facilities, the equipment to be used, any alarms or sounds they'll be hearing, and control their environment in terms of lights, fans, temperature, and then their rights as a patient. If you'd like to learn more about this and study further, beneath this video you'll find a link that'll take you to a website with that information. And on that website there's also a link to an ebook that's ready for immediate download.